Doctor. The Garden Doctor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Garden Doctor Show.
Hello.
We are going to speak for about 11 minutes, maybe 7, and then we're going to both keel over.
I hope not.
And one of us will come upright and hopefully carry on the conversation. My
Probably
wife just
him.
got back from the Rushville Hospital. She has pleurisy
And bronchitis.
and
Yay.
chronic bronchitis. And
Joy.
requiring some antibiotics. She's been having a lot of pain around her side and everything. If you're having a summer cold and it's hanging on and hanging on.
And hanging on. I think I was actually having this cold when we were here doing this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so this one has been hanging on a while. She's been getting the pains that were progressive, that were around the side, wrapping around, and every time she would cough or breathe hard, actually. And that's usually signs that you need to do something about it. And it takes very little time if you go to Rushville.
Well, yes, that's where I like to go.
You know, and really they're very quick to get on it, and they.
Well, next is you're going to your doctor because you still have the same cough and cold.
Yeah, I know, and I'm
Both of us
after
do.
having open heart surgery. I have to be very careful
Exactly.
about that, and I'm coughing to the point where I felt like I was ripping the
No, it hurts.
shreds out in here, but yeah, fortunately
All
it
right,
didn't.
but we're here.
We were
Yay.
going to make an outtake video, and she was otherwise engaged, and I was trying to fight the rain. I was going to try to do it by myself, and I was
You
too tired.
You can't do that by yourself.
Why can't I do this by myself?
You
I was
can't.
freaking out. Going to have to come up here and sit and talk to myself for an hour.
You can do it.
I have a lot of trouble talking, you know.
I know you do. I don't know how you would go, Just go
I
with
just
talk
don't
for
know.
an hour.
Listen, this is a live show. It's raining. Well, it was raining when they
was.
come in. So you have, you're going to be inside. You have to have the television on Channel 3. If it's not on Channel 3, and if you call your neighbor and hers is not on Channel 3, have them call the other neighbor because they could be missing something.
That's right.
This could be the one right here. We could, give it away today.
The number's on your screen right there.
Yeah.
And we are live tonight.
Call
so.
in, ask us questions. And by the way,
Do you have answers?
well, let me tell you.
Well, downstairs they have issues and answers, and we have questions and answers. So
This is how I get questions. This is on the back of a receipt.
that somebody left for you somewhere?
This is Desiree Runyon.
Okay.
That's not a girlfriend. No girls are leaving me notes or anything.
Now we know.
Desiree, lovely girl, works up at Walmart, and I know her husband. Husband's a great guy. He was the pride and joy out there at the greenhouse on the way out of town. What is it?
McDivitt's?
McDivitt's. For a long time. He did a fantastic job out there, and they know it. They
What does she
they
name?
bragged
What's
on him
wrong
a
with
lot
her
of times.
tree there?
She wanted to give me a recipe
Oh.
for Japanese beetle. Now, here's what I get, this part here, and then I get it written on here. And of course, when you write on these things on the back side, the ink doesn't always go because it's
know.
got that
Weird
wax
paper, yeah.
stuff on it. So I think this is what it said, so I looked it up, and you'll be covering it
Okay,
later.
gallon jug.
This is for Japanese beetle. You need a gallon jug.
Okay.
You need a package of yeast.
Like you make bread, do that little package of yeast thing,
Right.
okay?
And you need Dawn dish soap.
Yeah, the real deal stuff.
And what's that? Water.
Yep,
Okay.
water.
Then you crush up fruit, and she said that the riper the fruit, the better. And if it was like a banana or
Something sweet.
something that would rot quick.
Okay.
Okay. So you crush up a couple of chunks of fruit, and is that it? What's at the bottom there? See, this
Crushed
is
fruit, apple, banana, almost to a liquid. Yeah, okay.
Crush it up almost to a liquid. Put it inside.
That's what it says.
Leave the lid off, the cap.
Okay.
And just set it out in your garden. Now, it will attract this Japanese beetle, but it also will attract and drown gnats and some houseflies too, or some of the black flies that are bothering us outside.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it works on a number of things, and it has worked before. I wanted to specifically address something. Back when I was a kid, we didn't think we were poor.
No?
Just because we had an outhouse, just
That's
because
right.
we had 4 children sleeping in one room in bunk beds with curtains around it, that was how we made the room. Just because there were, let's see, Grammy and Grandpa Smith, that's 2, Auntie and Uncle Stub, that's 4, Grammy Hattie, that's 5, and then us 4 kids, that's 9. Just because there were 9 people living in a 2-bedroom house with no indoor plumbing and with no toilet facilities
My
inside,
goodness.
we didn't think we were poor. But what we did know is that we had to be very diligent with growing a garden.
Yes.
I mean, we had to grow a garden, and we grew a massive garden. It just so happened that Grandpa Smith, who is Auntie's where I was living, that would be Auntie's father-in-law, had ran a sawmill for years, and the old composted sawdust that had been there for 25, 30 years was the best stuff to put around the house for insulation. We would cut it in cubes and lay it up against the house in the wintertime, and it would keep the house insulated. It was really quite good at that. And also to mix in with the soil to break it down and put a lot of organics in the soil. But we would take a section of the garden. We had about a 2-acre garden. We would take one section of it and we would cover it with horse manure and cow manure and chicken manure and this sawdust. And we would till it in, plow it in usually, because we didn't have tillers. Plow that all in, let that set, and that would be your set-aside garden that was working as you were building another one. So then we would till the old one or work the other one up with a plow and with a harrow and everything, because an acre garden is pretty easy to work with a horse and small. And anyway, we would get this garden built. Now, in my family, my father was responsible for raising the potatoes, all the potatoes for all the family. And you're talking about 15, 16 families. So he had to raise a lot of potatoes, and they raised a potato called a cowhorn. It was a gnarly, twisty, purple colored potato that would grow anywhere in the rocks of New England. Had an extremely good production, and it was high in vitamin A, I think, and vitamin C. And unfortunately, that potato has almost
Yes, you don't see it.
disappeared. We've been trying to find the seed.
Yeah, and one of the catalogs I think we were looking, didn't you find the...
I did find the seed, and it's they're trying to reestablish it, but they only found a very, very small amount. At one time, we used to have thousands of pounds. Thousands of pounds. You go to every store that you went to, they had it. You know, that was the potato of choice. Nice, firm potato, easy to cook, easy to keep, great keeper. But anyway, we would plant, my father would plant the potatoes. My uncle would plant the beans and the corn. That was his job. My other uncle had the dairy farm. My other uncle raised hogs. You know, and so everybody had their job. And then you also had to raise for yourself the smaller things, you know, like the carrots and the radishes and the beets and the turnips and all that stuff you raised for yourself. But the production of your garden was vital to your life.
Well, sure, that was your food source.
We didn't spray anything on this garden. I checked to make sure. I called and talked to Auntie about it a few years ago, and I called and talked to when Grammy was still alive and Grammy Hattie down the road. And I talked to different people, and I said, you know, they said, oh yeah, we used a potato dust. But that was about the only dust that we used, and that was a 7 dust, and sometimes a rotenone dust. And as far as I could remember, that was the only spray that we would use. There were some other sprays, but chemicals were expensive too. So we would hand pick the potato beetles and the bean beetles, and if we had insects that started to infest, we would take a rag with alcohol and we would just wipe it, and they're gone. That's it. We would also set beer traps for the slugs and the snails and for some other things. And Auntie didn't like beer very well. So it was good to pour it out.
It was okay to do that.
It's okay to pour beer out. But and we did a lot of organics, but mostly we picked the issues. If there was something going wrong in there, we got it taken care of. And if it was a disease or something like that, then we would probably have ripped the crop out quickly before it infected anything else.
Right.
But
that makes sense.
now we depend so much on chemicals.
Well, and I think that's now what people are trying to really get back to is the way that we managed our farms and gardens before all the chemicals which we are now eating in our diet. So, and I think that really is what people are trying to get back to with the organic and,
Yeah.
you know,
and
wheat
we're pushing that.
spray-free. And
you and I came about this idea of organics very honestly. You know, my body is riddled from Agent Orange and from some of the chemicals that I used in my earlier years in
Probably,
the landscape
sure.
business, and from exposure to the injections that they gave me to go overseas. So you know, this is a serious and honest thing. Your body is attacked now with chemicals as well. You know, the chemicals they're putting into the cigarettes that you no longer smoke. I'm so proud of her. And the chemicals that they've put on our crops and so forth, that's all accumulating and affecting us. So it's increasing our disease problems. So that's why I try here to emphasize the organic approach, the common sense approach, something that you can do without reverting to a chemical. Now, there are chemicals out there.
Now, having said that, I also know what it's like to come out and find your entire garden all of a sudden overrun by something, be it the little white flies or whatever, and really want to get in there and spray. Absolutely,
and
both
some
sides
of that
the
is
leaves.
diligence. If you're out there in the garden every day, you see the problems starting to come.
Yes.
But then again, I have worked in a greenhouse every day, and then all of a sudden I would go down through the bromeliads or something, and the white fly would just be woof. You know, because it would be a hatch. So you can get overwhelmed. And there are...
And it's nice to have a spray sometimes.
Yes, and there are some good sprays out there that are pyrethrins that are...
No, I love the neem oil now. Now that...
And you're going to read some about all of these.
Is good.
There's a lot of new ones coming along. But you know, about 20 years ago, they stopped looking into plant-derived herbicides, fungicides, and controls about the time they come along with milky spore. However, fortunately for us, the University of Kentucky is fired back up, and they are running some unbelievable tests to try to develop fungus which will feed on the issues that we have. If we can corral a disease to eat a bug, or corral a bug to eat another bug.
Well, the only problem I have with that is we've also seen instances where that hasn't worked out so well, where they brought the Melaleuca into Florida to dry up some of the wetlands, and ended up it has taken over entire acres and acres of Florida.
Oh, I agree.
All the way up to Georgia now, and other even insects that they've brought in.
Vine.
They bring in a bird like the starlings.
Starlings taking over the world.
Exactly, where that's not their native environment. They didn't come from there. They don't belong there. It's not their native diet. And even though, yes, they feed on that one item you want to get rid of, you really got to look at the whole ecological effect.
I agree.
Bringing in a foreign.
And I did want, before we got off this, I did want to tell Desiree
Runyon.
I know her name is Desiree because I see her every day, and I see Desiree every day. So, and feisty little blonde that works down there. She loads stuff for me because she don't want me to lift it because of my surgery.
Aww.
And yes, they're all quite nice to me down there. And Kathy and the whole gang. So I'm very happy to get this recipe from her because she knows how much that I like to go with organics, and I wanted to give her credit for submitting that.
Now we have an issue in our personal garden right now, and I don't know if it's a very slow moving critter that eats your leaves or if it's just secluded to this one or two plants. But I have a plant here and a plant here. One is a cabbage, I believe, and one is a cauliflower, and the leaf looks like a piece of lace. I mean, it is so
And
eaten.
it's not just one plant.
And I don't see, right, well, it's
It's not one variety only.
right, that's right. It's one over here,
But
two
they're
different
in
varieties.
the same family.
Right, so I don't
They're
know
in the cabbage family.
if it's starting to take over and that's just where they're getting started, or if it's just
I
a
think,
weak plant.
I
It
think
can happen too.
we can identify, and that's another thing too.
But
What
I
if
don't
you
see any big
know?
leaf hoppers, so I don't know what it is.
What if you don't know, but you still want to use the least offensive control? Do a test first, very quickly. If you think it's slugs, put out some beer, or you have a slug control.
Now,
Tell them about
I
this
also
slug control.
sprayed all these plants with neem oil. These have all been sprayed. So
But neem oil won't necessarily control slugs.
okay.
It controls most varieties of slugs, but not all of them.
Okay, I
And,
assumed it was an insect that would kill it.
no, there's a list of the
Okay.
things. But read what it says about
Which one?
For the slugs and slug control. And also use the least offensive when you first start off. So let's say that you've got you can't identify what the problem is, and like we have, our cucumbers the vines just started to wither and die. So I went out and I pulled up one of the roots of the vine and studied it. You took a little 2-power magnifier out there with me, and you look like you know what you're doing, even if you don't, and studied it pretty well, and I could tell that we had something that was feeding on the roots, but it was also possible that there was a borer that had got to the roots, a grub type borer thing, that had got to that stem and the roots had died off. So it's one of the other. Now, my solution for that has always been to use Epsom salts.
Yeah, I saw
My mind is not all here. But Epsom
page
salts,
about Epsom salts for
and
a lot of things.
Damascus,
Help me now. Demetation. Hold on, let me find it. I'll tell you what it's called.
Demetaceous
We don't
earth.
feel good. Demetaceous.
Now, what you do with this earth business, what it is it's the
Diatomaceous.
diatomaceous. It's the diatom living creature that died, and they have sharp edges on them. So if you take this earth that is harvested now, and it's in the silica family.
It's powder made from fossils, basically.
Yeah, it's fossil, which is
so it's basically
that's
silica.
where it
but
gets its name.
Right. The individual grains are not smooth. They have jagged edges, which basically kills.
Yeah, and how it kills is it absorbs the moisture from the plant because it's so dry. It sucks the moisture. I'm sorry, not the plant.
No,
sucks the moisture
from
from
the
the,
grub or whatever.
insect, and also scars them, which increases
Scratches
the draining of their moisture, and they simply die. Now the trick though is it works when it's dry. It does not work when it's wet. So what I do is I put it right around the base of the vine. I use Epsom salts and diatomaceous earth, and I don't get carried away. Just put a little bit of it right around the base of the plant. Cover that with a paper plate. I prefer a plastic, one of those plastic covered paper
Styrofoam,
plates.
right, yeah, or something.
No, just it's paper, but it's
I know
got
what you're
wax
talking
on it.
about, yeah.
Okay, and just cover that area with that plate. Now that'll do a couple of things. The
That was
cutworm-
my idea when I did the Swiss chard last year.
You
And I
did
used
very
paper
well.
plates with holes in the middle to keep the weeds down
But
and
this
everything
keeps
else.
your application underneath dry.
Dry, right, so it doesn't wash away.
whenever the worm comes, it'll get there. Now, I like to work it into the soil a little bit because that grub comes up from the bottom. So work
Okay.
it down into the soil a little bit. And if you think about it, put it in the soil when you're planting the plant. Both the Epsom salts, which is one of the tricks that I use on my 100 suggestions for tomato plants.
That's it, right. It's in your tomato planting guide
That's
as well.
right. And the
Diatomaceous.
Diatomaceous. You know, I've said that for 100,000 years now. Suddenly, I can't actually. Before they were even a thing, I was saying it.
For the slugs and snails, this is really cool. It says you can build a homemade trap using a glass jar and put a few tablespoons of cornmeal inside this jar. And apparently they get in.
Assuming that all of you housewives have cornmeal.
And it says, in the evening, lay the jar sideways and in the infested garden bed. Come back in the morning and you'll find lots of dead slugs or snails lying in and around the jar. Repeat this process until you stop finding them. So it's like the picking in the old school way. You're attracting them into this jar, into this cornmeal, and eventually you thin them out.
Yes, and it does work very, very effectively. And if you've got the jar turned, it'll work even in the rain because everything
Right,
stays
it'll
dry on
stay
the
dry.
inside. But if you put the beer out, it'll get watered down and it won't work. But everybody has put the beer out for slugs,
Well, you're
I'm
just
sure.
heck bent on wasting people's beer, aren't you?
Well, I
you better
always
cut that out.
I always get old beer, steal it
Nobody
from the
has
neighbor.
old beer.
Well, we had some.
Well, we did.
We had some.
We did have some.
It got frozen
It kind of
and thawed
froze
3
and thawed in
times.
the cooler. It was old beer.
I
That's
gave
true.
it to my son. Let's see how he
Let him
works
drink
with
it. Headache? Headache much?
Now, other questions that come in, we'll get to those first.
Okay.
Don't forget you can call in here on the Doctor Show. People were a little bit sarcastic this time. I ran into Carol and Rich up at the, anyway.
Somewhere.
What is it? Tractor Supply.
There you go.
And they said, can I grow more under a street light than not?
What?
Well, think about it. If
No,
you're
I
planting
don't-
your garden under a street light,
Yeah.
can you grow more or less? What's your answer? Oh, Queen.
Less because you have less earth where the base of the street light is. How's
You
that?
can use the pole to grow your stuff up on.
Oh.
Beans and tomatoes.
You mean because it would be getting light at night? You think that would be a positive?
I think the question is based on the light. And
Okay.
yes and no is the answer. The answer is yes because there are some spectrums of light that come off of there that would promote growth and ripening of fruit and the development of fruit. However, the fact that there is a light attracts every insect within a
Ooh,
mile.
I didn't think of that.
And once the insects are there,
They're
they
gonna
need
eat.
something to eat on. So it works, and it can be a very bad scene. We try not to have bug attractors. You buy these lady beetle attractors, give them to your neighbor.
Don't put them near your flowers.
Go over and say,
Look what I got you.
Sammy, I got you a gift. Put this up over here. Because if you put it in your yard, it will attract the beetles to you. Why
Yeah.
would you want to do that? Don't do that. Also, if you see your bag starting the bag of, and I promise you, this happened. We set bags out at the golf course when they're having, we just overrun back in the
Oh, wow.
90s. We put trash bags, because the first bags we put on there that they send you are about this big. We were filling them every hour.
Oh,
we
my.
put trash bags on, and the trash bags ripped
What are we talking about? Japanese beetles?
Japanese beetles.
Oh.
The trash bags literally ripped down
Off
the
the-
attractors.
oh, my.
So we had to put back attractors. We had to brace the trash bags, and we had to put bigger. And we ended
Wow.
up putting the trash bags where they sit on the ground. But anyway, my point is, if you buy this beetle trap, and they do work, and you put it out away from your garden like you should, and you attract beetles to it, check it often, because when it starts getting filled up with decaying, rotting carcasses,
They're not going to come.
they're not attracted
Okay.
anymore. They're attracted to the pheromones that are in there. So clean the bag, flush the bag out real good, and put it back up. And to entice them a little bit more, you can use, you have the pheromone, but you can also put the stuff that attracts the Japanese beetle that she mentioned on here. Add some yeast, add a little dish
yeast
soap.
and fruit.
And some fruit, and that will even increase the attractant. And if you have an old one in your garage that the scent has gone away and you don't want to buy a scent pack, just do this.
Right.
Just put that in there.
Some yeast,
But
water,
it is a
and-
good idea, but don't do it in your yard.
I understand. It never occurred to me that you would want to keep that trap far away
Oh,
because you're just attracting
I'm not
them to
kidding
your
you.
yard.
I've never seen so many in my life. I thought we had broke a record or something.
Oh,
No,
wow.
didn't. Robin and Josh from Connorsville. What about the bones and heads of fish and deer and rabbit for under the plants? These are some sick, twisted folks around this part of the country.
No, just country folks, honey. What do
Actually,
you
no,
know?
that's a good idea, but you should grind them first.
What?
You don't just stick the bones under there and wait for it to rot. You know how long it takes a bone to rot?
Well, that's
They're
true.
digging up, what are they called?
Skeletons,
Dinosaurs.
yeah.
They're digging up dinosaurs for crying out loud. If poppy digs one up, it's gone. So if you're going to bury bones and you're going to use them for fertilizer, grind them up first.
Okay.
And hopefully you got something that'll grind them, because it's not going to be easy. Or smash them up with a
Well,
hammer.
they're talking about heads. Are they talking about like flesh and body parts, like from skin in a
Could be,
deer?
but
or
all of
something?
that is compost. All
Okay.
meat is compost. That's the rotting process is accelerated by that. Okay, but fish, of course, is what the Indians use. The Native Americans used to they'd dig a hole and they'd put suckers down at the bottom, dead suckers, obviously, not live. Cover them up, and then they would plant corn and beans on top. And as the corn and beans would reach down to where the carcasses were, those would be decayed to a point where they would become fish emulsion. And they would feed the corn and the soybeans all during the summer.
Well,
except we can't do that
Why?
because of skunks and raccoons.
Oh, right.
Back when the
they'll dig
Native
'em up.
Americans were here, there were very few
Well, when
skunks
I was
and
a
raccoons.
kid, I'll tell you, when I was a kid and we lived in Florida,
Call that number.
and our fish, an Oscar, okay, and he got real big. He was a big Oscar. We had him for years. When he died, we took him outside and planted him, buried him under the base of a big orange tree that we had down in Florida. And it was terrible.
Oh, that's the one that had the fish-shaped oranges the next
No,
year.
it did not.
Oh, it
That's
did.
ridiculous. we all cried when that fish died. We were out there holding the funeral and everything for George, our Oscar that died,
well,
and buried him under the orange
listen,
tree.
Dad had another
and that
Oscar.
had great oranges on it. By George, get it?
Yes, by George.
True story.
Dad had another Oscar too that broke his heart.
Oh,
he
that's
can't
true.
even look at smallmouth
I
bass
know.
anymore. when I bring
He
him
can't
in.
even go fishing anymore because he fell in love with the
Now
fish.
I wrote all of these off I couldn't get the internet questions to print out, so I had to write it down real fast in here. Mariah, would a fan keep the bugs off my potatoes?
Oh,
I don't know about that. I can see
moving
where
air?
it's possible that they just wouldn't want to fool with it and just go somewhere else.
But if you're sitting outside and you had a fan on you, mosquitoes wouldn't be biting you, right?
Well, I think that's might be where she's headed with this. I don't know. It's an interesting. If your garden wasn't too big, if you're
Well, if you just had a small potato patch, even like what we have.
Yeah.
And there are times we leave a fan running in the greenhouse in the spring for day and night for a while, and if I don't know.
And another thing I was thinking about, if you did put a fan up and you were trying to keep the rodents and stuff off your garden, the vibration oftentimes keeps the
right.
moles out. So that may work for moles and voles. And then the activity of the fan itself could affect the deer and the raccoons and all of this other stuff. And if you put streamers on it that flap around,
right, yeah.
you'd knock the birds out too. So a fan may be a heck of a solution.
Right. I tell you, it would be good for the gnats right now. They have been just awful. We were all talking about it in the studio here a little while ago, that they are definitely worse this year than they have been at all. And he was, John here, the station manager, was out at the...
John who?
John Palsy.
Oh,
was
he's
out
the
at
station manager?
Yes, station manager was out
Did he
to
get promotion?
the golf thing last Saturday, and he said there were people there who were using the help me, dryer sheets.
Dryer sheets.
Yeah, dryer sheets, and that they were gnat free. Tuck one in your hat or around your collar,
Definitely.
and you will be. And we at home tried also.
But you have to
Vicks.
wear the scented ones, the ones that really have a lot of
Well,
scent
yes, and the good Downy,
Well, I don't know if it has to be a
expensive name
Downy.
brand. Well, your uncle swears that those are the only ones that keep
I
the mice
know.
out of the snowmobiles all summer. So,
in them. And we haven't had any mice in the snowmobile.
so that's true. But,
So I guess, Bill, now this came in.
Oh, well, wait a minute. We also used the Vicks Vapor Rub. Now look what you did.
Oh, yeah, I don't need the pen. The Vicks Vapor Rub, yes,
That's right,
yes.
up under your hat.
No, behind the knees.
No, in your eye. You rub it in your eyes like this.
And you'll never see another gnat. It'd be years before
No,
you'll see a
don't do
gnat.
that. I'm just
No.
going to tell you to do that.
Put it under your hat.
No, across your forehead. Right here.
put it under your
in
hat.
front
Pay
of your
attention to
ears,
me.
right here, and under your chin, or like you would on your chest, and they will be out of your face.
And you'll smell just like my grandmother.
I don't care. You won't have gnats in your eyes. That's
That's your goal?
That's the goal.
Yeah, it really does work. And also Absorbine Junior, we used that once.
But you do have to be careful about getting even the Vicks anywhere near your eyes. I got it over here, and it was like,
and a report on the jugs, the red painted jugs. A friend of mine said, hey, I'll try it. He painted the jugs red, gallon jugs, milk jugs, and he smeared some oil on it, and he set like 8 of them in his yard. And he got up the next morning, and he went out to look, and they were all just swarmed and covered with gnats.
The only thing about
Just
that,
covered with
you
them.
can't pour it out and use it again.
No, he threw them all away.
Yeah, now what do you
know
do
what he
with
did
this
with it? He said they're covered with oil, so he set it on fire.
Oil and gnats.
Yeah, but it made a black smoke, and he's not going to do that
Let's
again
not
because
do
he lives
that
in
again.
town.
Let's do something else we could just dump
Yeah,
out.
well,
We got
anyway.
better
And then
ideas for
somebody else is trying one of the other traps, so we may have a report on that too.
I'm sorry.
Mariah. Oh, I love that.
You already read that one.
Mariah. What? Oh, that's the fan. Hey, that's cool. The wind and Mariah and the fan. You get it? You don't get it. Never mind. She's just delirious today.
Man
She's not
alive.
feeling well. Okay, so this guy sends a question, email question, and it starts out, this is Bill, wild man, you know who I am, no last name.
Hey, Bill Wildman, we know who you are. We know who you
I'm
are.
sure most of the rest of Connorsville does, but I'm not sure I do.
Sure we do.
All right, so he says, is there still, oh yes I do, is there still a market for walnuts? I have 40 mature walnut trees around my house. Okay, I would not live there in the fall of the year.
I used to know a lady who loved sitting there doing this and this and this and then all
I
went
would
forever,
not
and
live
her
there.
fingers would be black.
I have a very good friend of mine that has a very expensive motorhome. Very expensive. Parked his motorhome in the same place for like 3 or 4 years. Everything was fine. The walnuts started producing big walnuts.
Oh.
And they started dropping on his motorhome.
Plink, 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 plink.
I mean, he said it was like somebody was out there shooting all day and all night, hitting that tin roof, And he pulled it out and called the boys, and they came in and cut down the walnut trees.
Enough of that.
Yeah, and as far as a market, there used to be, because we used to sell them. Kids used to go out and collect them.
I know a lot of people like, shelling them, and do you roast them or boil them or something?
Bags, and then they would come into town and meet you at a certain location. We'll try to pursue that a little bit. Make a note of that. Up here.
I can't because you dropped my pen.
And we'll try to
reach
find
it.
out if there is a market for walnut, because I'll tell you what, we made some good money. There was a couple of years when our walnut were wormy, they didn't want them. But for the most part, our walnut are quite valuable. They're good, big ones, and they're the right variety. And so anyway, wow, man, I will find out. I don't honestly know if there is a market. Okay, then we have Helen.
Helen, yes.
Have surplus veggies, what to do?
Senior center.
Senior Center, yes, that's a good suggestion. Farmers Market.
Yes, you could go sell them 8 to 12 every Saturday morning
Make
downtown.
you a few bucks. It's a good hobby.
You have to sign up with them and pay us a nominal fee of $20
Just look it
or
up.
something.
It's in the book, isn't it?
Fayette County Farmers Market. It is on the Connorsville Community website. I know that. I'm not sure exactly where, but under events, I think.
Yeah. And you can also contact your local church if that's what you're looking to
Sure.
do.
Yeah. Donate it.
The Bikers Church has Gleaners Day.
There is a big need for food in this
Oh, yeah,
community.
there is,
really is. I was amazed when the Gleaners truck, and I've known about the food pantry, food banks. I've actually gone and gotten food. We've been through hard times too. I've been and got food at the food bank many times. But we went to the Gleaners truck, came into the Cross Point Biker Church and set up there, and all the volunteers, and I went to help out. And they served 140 families food that day. And they had pork roasts that were this big, and they
Couldn't
had
even hardly carry
I
'em.
mean, fresh food, fresh beans, green beans, all kinds of good food, and they served over 140 families that day.
Then, of
So
course, there's the kitchen.
absolutely, you should be able to find somebody
Yeah.
if you have surplus
Yeah,
food. who
don't
wants
throw
it.
away surplus veggies.
But
Please don't throw
if
them away.
all what I
Even
do
put them
is
out on the street side and put sign
free
on say
sign.
free. Yeah.
But I love bringing them down to the senior center because it's my first stop if I
It
come into
lights them
town.
up.
And you come in with your bins and everything and unload it, and everybody is happy and wants to come get some fresh veggies because they all used to have a garden, but they can't anymore, and so they love getting the cucumbers
Yeah,
and the zucchini.
they really do, and it's a
they
good,
appreciate
and it's
it
a
very
good time
much.
to while you're there, go ahead and look through that thrift shop.
Yeah,
because
they have a good little
I
thrift
always
store.
find a treasure or two in there.
Of course.
Yeah, and there's a cute lady behind the counter too.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's quite cute. Okay, and from Randy and Randy,
No.
it says Randy and Randy.
Okay. Could be a male and female, Randy and Randy.
Could be. I mean, anything's possible. Cherries.
Or two males, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Is-
Or two female Randys, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Perhaps they're aliens. Cherries on Monday last. This person must be from Florida
following-
or from England,
wait,
right?
cherries on Monday.
Like that. Monday last.
Okay,
that means
Monday
last
last, gone the following night. What the H?
What the H?
This is a no cursing zone.
We know exactly what happened to your cherries.
Birds.
No,
Oh.
she has a neighbor.
Oh.
And that neighbor, I saw them out there.
You don't
picking.
know where this tree is, but we had great cherries too. But
We
I
had
didn't realize.
fabulous cherries.
But I didn't know you had to be 25 feet tall to eat your own
well,
cherries.
the garden doctor didn't prune the cherry tree.
He
to
didn't
get it
tell
down.
me, oh, you have to get up on a giant ladder and pick them to have cherries.
But they were ripe, and I started eating, and
The
I got like
birds ate
two
'em?
handfuls, and I'm looking up, and they're everywhere on this tree. And I'm go to her, and I said, hey, we got to get these cherries picked tomorrow. Well, we delayed 2 days.
They're gone.
We go out, almost all of them are gone. And there's swarms of blackbirds, red-winged blackbirds, love black cherries. Or any cherries. Tart cherries, sweet cherries. they
That
don't
was
care.
when I first moved here. I said, hey, honey, what are those black birds with the red wings? He said, they're red-winged blackbirds. I'm like, ha ha, very funny. They really are.
I never spoof her. I always tell her straight up. I never.
Like when you told me the Chinese people at the restaurant were talking about me, saying they could tell I wasn't from around here. That's what he did to me when I first moved here.
My boys assumed that because I went to Vietnam, I could speak any Oriental
And
language.
he always says, dinky dinky dow or something.
And I can speak a few words, a few phrases. So when we would go into a Chinese restaurant, I would always listen and I would tell the boys what they were saying. And so we were in a Chinese restaurant the very first time we had brought her out to dinner, and they wanted to show off for their stepmom or soon-to-be stepmom. Or were you stepmom
Not yet.
already? Not yet. And we're working on it.
That could have killed it too, right there.
And she was a little naive, just a little naive, and
No, I'm trusting, it's called.
she says, "What are they saying?" And I went, "Oh, they can
What? Tell me.
you're just not from around here."
Are they really? Oh my gosh, I couldn't. But they laughed and laughed. I thought that was terrible. That was mean.
Oh dear. Okay.
Anyway.
Randy and Randy, it's probably the birds.
Okay. Susiana?
Susiana, we had some odd ones on there. Matter of fact, I didn't pick any of the normal ones. If you got a normal name, I'm not going to write your thing down.
Now you're going to have everyone making up weird names.
This one's made up.
Dorkadoodle or
Yeah.
something.
Used compost, horse SH.
Shoot.
Yeah. For making
Making-
new garden, can't find for the weeds.
What?
Well, here's
I
the
don't
deal.
get it.
They broke ground to make a new garden and probably went down to the horse barns and got all that lovely horse manure down there and brought it out and put it on their garden and tilled it in. And then the next year, or maybe they did it the same year, which they should not do, up comes the weeds because horse manure is plumb
Poop is
full of
sprouts,
weeds.
yeah.
It is absolutely overrun with
It's like
weeds
a
mostly.
compact pile of weed seeds.
Especially if it's composted, because then you get all the blown in seed. Now, if you were to get it right straight from the sawdust, where it's been in a controlled environment, and horse poop, and the horses were fed grain, and so on and so forth, you would have a lot less, but that's not how you're going to get it. So you are going to have a major, major weed infestation for a while.
Wow.
Every time you turn the ground, you're going to bring up
Will
more.
preen stop it? Pre-emergent?
No, not completely. It won't completely stop it because they're turning the ground
Right,
up.
okay.
As soon as they turn the ground up, they'd have to put the preen on, then they can't sow any seeds.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it
Yeah.
becomes a dilemma. But here's what you do. You do a thing called solar baking. In the summertime, close to now, when the temperature reaches the highest that it possibly can reach, you cover that area, mow the weeds down however you can, cover that area with clear plastic and nail it down on both sides. Don't let any moisture get underneath it, and allow the sun at 100 degrees, 90 degrees,
Under that
whatever.
plastic, it'll be
underneath
hot,
there, it'll be
yeah.
140, 150. And you're solar baking the ground. You're baking the diseases, the insects, and the weed seed. Weed seed cannot take that temperature.
And you are stopping evaporation from the soil that's down there. Anyway, what my point being, in my garden right now, everywhere I have plastic, there are no weeds.
Yeah.
And it's not drying out as fast because it's covered with plastic too.
Well, plastic, the way you do it with sheeting, can be used two ways. If you have a dry summer, or let's say you look at the weather and the long-term forecast is for the next 3 to 5 weeks going to be dry, you tilt that sheet of plastic towards your plants. All water that falls will run to them.
That's true, yeah.
If you're going to get excessive water like we are now, I went out and raised up the side that is closest to the plants, and the water's going to run away. So,
See, I kind of didn't take that water drainage into consideration whatsoever. I've kind of just been watering the plant in the soil that I can see because that's all I know. That's the only soil showing. That's the only where to apply water. It didn't even occur to me to try and catch the rainwater and direct it.
and you can also V it like that and keep the rainwater right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what I like to do anytime I plant something, and oftentimes I forget, and I don't know why, is you put in you put in your pepper plant and plant it in real good, pack down the soil, and make a rim all the way around the plant.
Do that when
make
you plant
rim.
a tree too.
And then
Shrub.
when it rains or when you water it, it holds an extra little reservoir of water. I'm not saying that's going to last and water it for a week.
It helps
but it does help
tremendously.
a lot. Yes.
If you have a plant that you plant that's on a little bit of a hill and you try to water it, every bit of water beyond that which will soak into the ground runs off.
Yes.
Every single bit. But if you make a half
Oh,
a moon
right.
horseshoe
You're catching it.
that is higher than the slope, all the water you put on, as long as you don't flush out your
Yes.
ridge, goes, soaks down into the soil gradually. We try to plant our trees about 2 inches deeper than the old root ball, and then bank up all the way around enough so that it should hold 5 gallons of water. A 5-gallon hard ridge all the way around the outside. Now, when my guys go to water, or when I go to water, or when the customer goes to water, I tell them to fill that up, then go to the next one, fill that up, go to the next one, go to the next one, 5 or 6 of them.
Then come back.
Then come back and fill it up again. And do it 3 times. Now what has happened is you've watered the immediate area of the tree, you've watered out beyond the immediate area of the tree, you've ordered generally to the depth of the root ball, and you've watered generally a little beyond the depth.
That's right. We're struggling today. But yes, you've watered
More
thoroughly.
medication.
And you've made it stay in the vicinity
Yeah, sure.
and go deeper to the roots.
Most definitely, and it works. If you will be diligent with your watering and water more frequently. You got to realize these are babies. You have taken them out of the environment, stuck them in the ground, and you can't just expect them to grow. They have to have water. They may not need nutrients, but they have to have water. If you have annuals out or vegetable plants out, please fertilize them on a regular basis, because that will cut down on the disease and the insects and also increase your fruit. Now, on a regular basis, don't over-fertilize them with the wrong product. So if you have something in the package that they say, well, just mix this and put it in a sprayer and spray it on, and it's for roses, it's for everything. Well, it may not be, because you do not want too high of a nitrogen unless you're trying to force them at the end of the season. You want something that's down about 10, 15 first number. Something that's 15 or greater middle number. something that's 15 or greater last number. But the first number should be lower. I don't care if it's even down in the 5s. 2, 3, 4, 5. You also should include iron. There should be some calcium for blossom end rot on your tomatoes, and that should happen immediately. Spray it on, dust it on, powder it on. And I always recommend Epsom salts around the base of any stem to keep away, Dumahama Tamaceous.
Dimetaceous.
What is it?
I don't know.
Oh, now she doesn't know.
Dimetaceous. Diatomaceous. Diatomaceous.
Diatomaceous is what it is. Diatomaceous. As a matter of fact, the critter was a diatom.
It was not.
He was a
You're
diatom.
making that up.
That's how word diatomaceous comes from. It's a diatom. What'd you get your degree in?
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember.
it had to do with this stuff right here.
It was fossils and earth
That's
science.
right. It was
That's
fossil.
right.
So it came from a diatom.
I've never heard of
You
a diatom.
owe me.
It's from the fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organism whose skeletons are rich in a natural substance called silica.
We need a verification out of the
Shaped-
back office here. Look up diatomaceous earth.
Diatoms, is that for real? Justin says that you are correct, sir. I believe him before I believe you. You make something like that up just to mess with me. Yeah, they said you're not from around here. Yeah,
And I paid him $1 to say that. So now what are you going to do?
Well, apparently their bodies are shaped like a cylinder, and their minuscule fossils have razor-sharp edges that
That's
don't
right.
affect humans but cut and kill parasites.
That's right.
There you go,
There you go.
diatomaceous.
There you go. We're going to go through these real quick. I don't even know what time it is. Oh my gosh, 7:45.
Oh.
7:45. I'd say Amos. Amos. There's nobody in town named Amos.
I'm messing with you now.
Can I grow tomato? Oh, you should have seen there's
What
one that
planet is he from,
I would have
Uranus?
loved to have read this one. I don't know where this guy was from, but it was deep in the dark holes of Kentucky. Because the words, you had to even put them together, and there was like 45 cuss words, and then there was a pronoun in there somewhere. But anyway, can I grow tomatoes and peppers on the north side of my house? Yes and no. If they're too close to the north side of your house, you are going to get way less light than is necessary. But you can modify the light that you get from on the north side by going out on the east or the west and putting up something that is reflective. It doesn't have to be a mirror. It can be just a white sheeting, siding, a chunk
Really?
of siding. Yeah, it can be anything that reflects, even an old door. I've seen people set up doors to deflect the light and also to direct the light. So that will help. But also planting away from the north side, the light comes in at an angle, see?
Okay.
So you do get more light, and you will get, this time of the year, you get 6 hours of light 6 foot from the north side of a building, as long as it's not in the middle of the building, which also decreases the amount of light. So you want to be at one end or the other and not have any trees, just the building we're dealing with here. You could, if you plant away from the building 6 foot, and I prefer a little further, good soil, you should have no problem growing tomatoes or peppers in that location, and you can increase it by giving you some reflective light if you wish.
There you have
So,
it.
we have, you have a whole bunch of stuff. Now, we wanted to go over a few things that, let me run down. There's a lot of organic stuff coming on the market that what it is combinations, and it's good for you. It's good that you have the combinations now. You used to have to buy individual dormant oil, and then neem oil, and then 7 or 8 different, there's a lot of oils, out there. There's dormant oil, there's summer dormant oil. Read the label, read the package, and you'll find that you can do almost all of it with a good quality oil. If you get the right one, you can do just about all of it. But there are products out there now called
What is that?
organicides. Yeah. I see this guy was close here, plant doctor. He better not be putting no GD up there because I'll come get him. Organicide plant, there was a challenge to the garden doctor about 15 years ago. Oh yeah, a guy up in northern Indiana, he was running a show radio show, and he said he was the first garden doctor. I said, well, so I go get Peacock. Peacock got the original records. Somebody else got some records, and we went up there and we raised Cain. And it is a copyright. But I gave him the option. He could call himself either Garden Doctor Junior
Okay.
or Garden Doctor 2. -2. Garden Doctor -2.
What's -2?
I don't know. That's what Peacock said. I don't know.
Okay.
And that's what he is. He's Garden Doctor -2. Okay, so this organic.
What is Organicide now? What's it got in it? Is that like a neem oil type product?
Well,
or?
it's for a number of different things, yeah, but the content is active ingredients are mono and potassium salts of phosphorus acid. Now, you see, they're figuring out that certain parts of organic compounds can do certain things, and this is
like the reason
investigations.
magnesium or whatever it is what tomato plants need to stop them from
Right,
doing
calcium,
that
magnesium,
rot.
right? So, but there are a lot of new ones on the market that do not just insecticide, but do fungicide. And there's also some really exciting stuff coming along with these new pathogens and these new, out of the University of Kentucky and a number of other places, where they're identifying parasites that will kill what you want to get rid of. And the thing about it is, and you do worry about any modifications to nature, but the thing about when that happens is when the parasite has eaten everything that is there, it dies.
Okay,
So
I
you're
can
done.
deal with that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Okay, then they have the Green Cure fungicide. That's for powdery mildew and everything. And there's a lot of these on the market. There's the whole list of them. This thing effective on 200 university trials, and they have tested it over and over again on any number of fungicides and for mildew and these are something that you can put on right up until the day of harvest.
Wow.
Also, there's some that you can put on as a preventative. I am a big promoter of this thing called 3 fungicide. Who made that?
3 fungicide?
Yeah, it says 3 fungicide.
I don't know.
Okay, it's very mislabeled. It's very misleading. I think they have it at Tractor Supply. It's an organic. You go to the organic department and it says 3 fungicide. Nonsense. It's an insecticide, a miticide, and a fungicide. Why they list it as 3 fungicide, which is foolishness, but they do. But it takes care of all of the products, can be used right up until the day of harvest, and if I'm not mistaken, is safe for bees.
Now that's really important too.
Big important, yes.
Well, we've got a bee problem. We really, without bees, there goes the entire food chain, the food supply.
When
so.
Stoney brought down his hives to our farm, our production of cucumbers, melons, watermelons, tomatoes, anything that produced fruit, at least doubled, and
Wow.
some of it tripled. A lot of vines broke. We broke vines. Our fruit trees and our fruit, we had strawberries then, was at least doubled.
Wow.
But they're busy bees. So instead of only 1 out of 5 blossoms being pollinated, it's 3 or 4 out of 5.
Right.
So, and it makes a world of difference. Did you find something particularly interesting there?
Well, just I like the idea of the essential oils, using the natural products, and, you can make a
Now,
combination.
you know what essential oils, where would you buy something like that?
Well, you can buy it at Walmart,
Okay.
essential oils.
All right, they are
They're
peppermint,
right.
spearmint,
Right. Like
those type of things.
clove
That's what
oil.
An essential, clove oil is an
Clove
essential
oil is
yeah.
good for flying insects, whereas cedar wood or pine is good for slugs and snails.
Right.
Okay, and then if you have something like rosemary or peppermint, that's good for aphids and beetles and those kind of things. So you can kind of, depending on what your problem area is, I guess, you could make your own concoction or use individual. Now, I guess what you would need to do is put the oil in, what you do is in water, I guess, and then shake it up to
They
mix
give
it.
you a formula, I think.
Is that how you do?
Right down here.
Oh,
gives you-
I like eucalyptus oil too.
Yeah, it gives you a formula of how
Here,
to...
for an all-purpose oil insecticide, a teaspoon of vodka. Oh, wow. With 10 drops of lemon oil, 10 drops of eucalyptus oil, 10... Okay, and it goes on. And
now we're wasting
to a spray
some-
bottle, apply thoroughly, shaking before each use.
Give me this. I'm
What?
missing something. One of the things that we don't do enough of is plant plants that do a natural job of repelling.
Right, like the marigolds right now.
Marigolds are big, 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 big.
And we have them in between every single tomato plant. Well, actually, I have one marigold on either side of every tomato plant. We have basil planted in the garden as
Basil
well.
is big. Basil
because,
seedlings.
With basil, you sweeten, they claim you sweeten your tomatoes.
Prop your tomatoes up off the ground and trim them up so the splash can't get up to them. It cuts disease down by 80%.
Yes.
But you got to do it early. Once the disease is in them, you'll be in trouble. Prop them up, stake them up, and trim them up. Basil seedlings or oregano. Oregano is a deterrent for many of the insects and diseases
You know,
that
I've
would get
got a
in
lot of leftover oregano plants.
Did you know that sunflower seedlings? Remember when we had the sunflowers planted out there and we had a really good year of
Yes.
tomatoes and everything? Well, I didn't know that sunflower was one of the compatible plants. It attracts bees.
The good things
It
to your
attracts the
tomatoes.
bees,
Well, that
and
makes
it
sense.
also deters, because of the foliage, it deters certain moths from going to
Okay.
the plants you don't want them to, and they feed off the sunflower. So
All right.
it's, they're very compatible. Carrots.
Carrot seeds.
Carrot seeds is what you're going to need. This is the list of what you need. You
Oh,
need to grow
okay.
carrots with tomatoes. They are very, very compatible. Nasturtiums, I don't think we've ever done that.
I know, we have not done that. We have done the marigolds, which is very important, yes.
And you definitely, positively, absolutely want to fertilize to keep the plant strong and healthy. We try to use an organic fertilizer. We love Tomato Tone. I love some of the fish emulsions that are out there. I'm crazy about seaweed. I use a kelp extract, and we get some big, juicy, full-flavored, rich tomatoes. We really do.
And it does talk about putting some normal, natural bugs that, you know, are not necessarily from far away, you know, but
Yeah.
natural predators to,
Yeah.
say, cucumber beetles.
Even
or-
even the ladybug, you know, is a natural predator.
Oh, okay.
It won't eat your plants.
But it will eat the bugs that eat
Yeah,
your plants.
right.
Okay.
And there's a killer wasp, and it will go around and kill the horn worm. It'll kill a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was reading about
It
that.
infests its.
And you know, the internet is a wealth of information.
and if you don't have the internet, go to the library.
And you do have to be careful what you read on the internet, because not every, believe it or not everything you read on the internet is true.
That's
Most
right.
of it is, what are they calling it now? Fake news.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful.
Now listen, there was a lot of calls that came in about how late to plant, and I keep telling you, plant your tomatoes now, plant your peppers now, plant your cucumber seeds now, plant your pumpkin seeds now.
I'm ready to start my second garden
plant
already.
your some of your fall crops, if you can put some shade up for them. They really need some shade if you're going to put in a fall crop and you're going to expect it to grow in the garden. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower,
Yep.
that takes a while for the seeds to
does.
grow. But they need to be in the shade. They need to be in the cool.
Yeah, it's way hot right
so
now.
keep them, stack up 2 bales of straw and keep the bales wet. That will keep them shaded. Put them on the north side of the bales, and you'll have a much better luck. The cool breeze coming through the straw will keep the temperature down a little bit too. But you do need to plant your tomatoes. Go see if you can find tomatoes right now, a variety you've never grown. Stick it in the garden. Go get some cucumber plants that you've never planted, seeds, because you're going to want a second and even a third crop. You want to plant cucumbers this week Wait about 10 days, plant another crop. Wait about 10 days and plant another crop because
and I don't
you're
know
going to
what-
have them coming on.
I don't know what other people are getting right now. We are getting some beautiful little cucumbers, lots of little cucumbers, and yellow squash. Oh my goodness, most beautiful yellow squash.
Crookneck squashes everywhere.
The zucchini are slow coming on. We've got them about finger size, but they're coming. So, and I guess we're running out of time. We found a way to
Try
talk
organic
through a whole show.
first. First, try to figure out what is wrong with your garden, and if you can identify it, you may be able to come up with a homemade or an easy solution, something that is natural. If you can't do that, then try to go to the least powerful organic.
Because the truth is, if it's way
because
too
organics
complicated,
are also poisonous.
well,
Some
everything
organic.
is to something.
Yeah, so you have to be careful even with the organic. So you go with that first. If nothing works, then you start looking at the labels that say they have chemicals in them, and even then, try to get exactly what you need to control and use it all up. Do not store it. Put it up. Put it away. Do not let the kids get to it. We love you, and we're out of here.
The Garden Doctor.